Today's scam victim was so desperate they took down an entire bank. I'm C, and this is Scams, Hacks and Frauds. Elkhart is a small town in rural Kansas, USA. It sits on the border with Oklahoma and is only 8 miles from Colorado. Its 2 square miles are home to just under 1,900 people. Elkhart is a genuine part of the American Heartland. Perhaps that's why its local bank was named the Heartland Tri State Bank. Heartland Tri State Bank was a small community bank with only 4 branches. Its local focus allowed it to serve the farming community, ensuring that farmers could save in the good times, survive the hard times, make payments for seed and supplies, and have access to capital to grow. Leading the bank was Shan Haynes. Shan had been a part of the bank since the 1990s. Except for a short period in 2011, he had led the bank since 2008. He was on a first-name basis with former Secretary of the Treasury Janet Yellen, spoke regularly at state and federal legislatures, and yet had a knack for explaining farming to outsiders, making him the perfect link between the two worlds. He appeared to be the type of respectable soul stereotypical in a small town. He mowed yards, coached sports teams, and was a part-time preacher. It was said almost everyone liked him, and with his modest lifestyle he didn't seem to need money. Not the type of person you'd expect to fall for a scam. If you've not heard of a pig butchering scam before, the name comes from China, where many agricultural terms have entered daily speech. These scams can take many forms, but they follow a similar process. We'll walk you through the process as they happen to Shane. The first step for scammers is to build a sty. This takes the form of fake social media accounts intended to attract victims. From the sty, the scammer selects a feeder, or a target. We know that in December 2022, Shane had met someone online claiming to be Bella, a beautiful woman in Hong Kong. The scammer then begins the process of nourishing their victim. This process can take a long time and involves building a friendship or romance. Bella and Shane had started sharing daily messages. As a banker, Shane was naturally interested in cryptocurrency. Bella seemed to know a lot about cryptocurrency, so they had much to discuss. We'll cover cryptocurrency in more detail in future episodes. If you haven't heard of it, it's a form of electronic money that has legitimate uses, but is a recurring element in scams, frauds, and money laundering. When the nourishing is complete, the scammers then slice the throat, starting the scam proper with an investment opportunity. Bella's aunt in Australia was beginning a new cryptocurrency site, giving Shane an excellent opportunity to be on the ground floor. He jumped at the chance and made a small investment, and he was pleased to see not long later that it had created a healthy profit. There was, however, a problem. To release the profit, Shane would have to invest more in the site. So he did. After all, it seemed quite sensible with the returns the site was offering. $10,000 from a local investment club, $40,000 from his church, and then $60,000 from his daughter's college fund. If the story had ended here, it would have been a tragedy. But here's the turn that turned victim into criminal as the scam moved into its final phase, the slaughter. A significant profit is offered in exchange for the money needed to clear the final hurdle. This time, the amount requested is much larger than before. In this case, he's offered tens of millions of dollars in profit in exchange for a few million more to solve a technical problem. What Shane doesn't realize is even if he finds the money, he will never see that profit. On the 30th of May, 2023, Shane turned his attentions to the bank's assets. $1.5 million was taken from the bank and wire transferred to Bella and her cronies. The next day, another $1.5 million was transferred. The 2nd of June would see an escalation, with 2 transfers over $3 million. 2 weeks later, on the 14th of June, another $10 million. Another million on the 20th of June, back up to $10 million 3 days later. The transfers and frequency of these amounts were uncommon of a bank of Elkhart's size. On the 24th of June, the board of the bank adopted a new wire transfer policy. The $5 million limit, which Shan had already circumvented, was dropped to $3 million, and additional employees were required to sign off on large transfers. However, just 3 days later, Shan had used his position to bypass even these controls, transferring $3 million. Questions, however, were now being asked. On one, Shan advised he was helping a young borrower buy a home. On another, he claimed it was a mistake. The board accepted these excuses. On the 5th of July, he approached one of the bank's largest clients, Brian Mitchell. Brian didn't just own a farm, he also owned a chain of movie theaters. Shan explained to Brian that he was on track for a $47 million payout from the cryptocurrency site, but the funds were stuck for technical reasons. Another $12 million would resolve the issue. Brian would just lend Shan the money, he could cash out, and this would all be over. Brian tried to talk his old friend out of it. He told Shan that his story was confusing and that he thought it was a scam. If the money was real and in an account somewhere, he should just go and get it. Shan didn't listen and took another $8 million from the bank the same day. 2 days later, he took another $4 million. Brian Mitchell, however, had told the board about his concerns and a meeting was called. At the meeting, Shan admitted to the board he was involved in a cryptocurrency scheme, but the bank was at risk if they didn't immediately lend him $18 million. The board told him, perhaps without irony, that they weren't comfortable betting the farm on this. Shan informed them that he'd already bet their farm for them. The board then reviewed the accounts, and in the middle of July, they informed Kansas and federal authorities that they were in a liquidity crisis, meaning the bank essentially had no money. Examiners and investigators descended on the bank, and on the 28th of July, 2023, at 5 p.m., the bank was closed forever. Heartland Tri State Bank was no more, and the pig was well and truly butchered. Shan had taken over $47 million from the bank in total. Shan was charged on 29 counts, pled guilty, and was convicted. His assets, including his home, were taken to pay back bank shareholders and the government for intervening. He is not due to be released until June 2045, not the retirement he was planning. Through this, you can see the horror of pig butchering scams. A long friendship or romance turns into the drip, 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 draining you dry until nothing is left. Part of this is the friendship or romance angle. It's hard to say no to someone you care about, but before you do any significant transfer, make sure you're talking to friends and family, and if you feel the need to hide it, that should be a warning sign. Another part is the sunk cost fallacy. I'm sure we've all fallen down this hole at one point. This fallacy fools us into chasing our losses. When we've started on something, an investment, a relationship, or even some other project, we often get to a point where we begin to ask ourselves if it's worth keeping on. But instead of deciding to save ourselves from further losses, we push on. After all, wouldn't it have been a waste of his daughter's college fund if he didn't just find a little more to release the final payout? If you're being promised something that seems too good to be true, it's because it's too good to be true. Random people on the internet are not offering real investments, but will pay back multiple times your investment in just a few days or weeks. You may be wondering if there's anything you can do to protect yourself from a bank manager going rogue and sinking the bank. In most countries, bank deposits are protected by the government with a guarantee. If you have a lot of savings or are holding on to a lot of money because you've just sold a property or need to transfer an inheritance, it's important to be aware of this limit. In the US and Australia, it's $250,000. In Europe, it's €100,000, and in the UK, £85,000. You should avoid holding more of this amount in any one bank. Even if you're not near this level, having an account in a second or third bank can be handy. If that bank fails or has some sort of technical problem, you immediately have another account that you can pass your salary or wages to and make payments from, avoiding potential penalties. If you're running a business, having rules to control spending is essential, but not enough. You must ensure that your company has a culture that allows your staff to push back when a senior staff member insists on breaking the rules. The Heartland Tri State Bank didn't feel like that they could stand up to Shan. If they had, perhaps the bank would be here today. I've been C, and this has been Scams, Hacks and Frauds. If you've enjoyed the show, please share it with everyone you know. You'll find more episodes, transcripts, and sources on our website at scamshacksandfrauds.com. This podcast is available to reuse for free under the Creative Commons with Attribution Share Alike license. The music is not included in this license. For more information on the Creative Commons license, please visit creativecommons.org.